Thank you everyone who's joining me this afternoon. We have this lovely Samoan inspired tribal looking turtle here that's on our to-do list. So in order to get this little sketch happening, you will need some supplies. Of course, we have some pencils. I have a varying amount of markers. So this one's like a retractable Sharpie. I have a double-sided alcohol marker in the color black. I have a fine line illustration pen. I have a varying gray color, also double-sided. Just a plain ink pen can also work. This is as cute as a bee, but it is a fine line gel pen as well. And then of course I have an extra eraser on hand because our erasers really get used up around here. So you definitely want to have that close at hand. If you want to use any other kinds of markers, Crayola brand is fine. You can also definitely use watercolors, use an acrylic, but for today, sketching purposes, all you need is just a simple pen and some black markers. So we're going to get started sketching. It's a very easy sketch, but a repetitive pattern does happen. So as long as we get our basic steps in, we are going to do a very light sketch. So just be aware of when you're sketching, you want to try to do it fairly lightly, and we'll be doing a lot of erasing. So definitely keep an eraser handy as well. So the general space of our picture, we have our subject not quite at the center, kind of off center and coming into the page. So we're going to gauge how large our shell is to kind of start the sketching process. So it's about the size of my hand. So I'm going to kind of guesstimate how large my hand is and just create 2 dots on the side of my page using my hand kind of as a reference. So I put a point here. So that would be the starting point of my shell. And then I'm going to tuck my hand under my wrist and just create another point here. So I should have about halfway down the page, a point and a point. And it should be about the size of your hand. And once we have those 2 dots, as you can see, we have a dot here and dot here, about the length of my pencil across. We're going to start creating an egg shape. So it's kind of going to be like an upside down egg. It's not a complete full circle. So it's a little bit of an oblong shape, very, very similar to that of an egg. So a little wider here. And then as we go down towards the other dot that we create, we're going to create that egg shaped for our shell. So with some slight light strokes, I'm just going to start branching out into that rounded egg shape. And as I'm bringing the sketch around, I'm going to turn my wrist like so. And feel free to turn your page as well. However you're comfortable. And I'm going to work this line towards the other dot. So I'm just curving around and lightly sketching towards the other dot. Now it looks like I'm writing the letter C. So we have the starting point, sketching around, coming around to this other dot, and now we're just going to tuck our way back home. So another light sketch, and we're coming around. Now this is a little bit wider, so I'm just going to keep that in mind as I'm bringing my line around. And twisting kind of my wrist so that it creates another letter C type of shape. Just coming around. And don't worry about trying to do the line all in one shot like that. You want to take these short little steps. And as you can see, the sketch of our shell is not perfect. You have lots of lines over, you have lots of sketch kind of crisscrossing. So we're just going to take our eraser and just clean up our shell. So I feel like this is a good representation for a starting point. I'm going to look at my reference picture. I'm going to look at the shell that we have on hand. And I'm just going to kind of come down this way and do a little edit. So I'm going to make this side a little less round, and I'm kind of widen this part a little more. And that's why we sketch lightly. So we sketch lightly because we want to be able to make those edits. And if you draw your line too hard, the sketch will show a dark line underneath. And it could affect the way that your entire picture looks at the end. So there we go. We have our shell circle created. We have this shape automatically done. So we're going to get started with this head here. And we're going to not attach it to the circle. So if you can see up close, there's a little bit of a gap. So we're going to play into that gap. And I'm going to decide how wide. So it's about 2 fingers wide. So about here, I'm going to use my 2 fingers to measure. So I put my 2 fingers here, create a little dot, and set my 2 fingers here and create a little dot. Okay, so I don't want to go further than those 2 little spots. So let's do a little gap leaving and create another light sketch. And then we're just going to create a little U shape. So if you can write the letter U upside down, just like so. So we have a U. Now, in addition to that U, we have this little hump here that's representative of the other eye of the turtle. So we're going to create an extra little hump. That's the eye facing that way. And then we're going to form a little bit of a neck. So once you've done this U for the head, you're going to add this little lip of an eye. And then we're going to create a little indentation here for the neck. And here's where our handy dandy eraser comes in. So we've curved ourselves a little indentation there. So you kind of have more of a turtle shape of the head. And then we're going to create a swirl here in the shape of almost a question mark. So let's look at what that looks like. So we're going to decide where this eye is going to be, and that's going to be a slight question mark. So we're going to create a dot here of the starting point of the center of our swirl. So I think right about there should be where my starting point is for that eye. So there we go. Starting point. And then I'm going to carefully come around and act like I'm going to make a circle that doesn't necessarily end. So we have the swirl. It's like creating a circle that doesn't connect. And then come down around like a question mark. Then we'll trace around a parallel line, just like so. And there we've created that tribal eye. And then we want to define the top of the head with a gap as well. So if you look in our sketch here, it's just 2 soft curves kind of hovering over the eye. So we're just going to do 2 soft little curves here. And there you have the head. We're moving right along. So the next step, after creating these 2 soft curves at the top of the head, are going to be setting up some fins. So the turtle in the picture has 4 fins. And if you can see here, it's very simple to create the fin. This is one straight line going across, and then this is a curved line coming down. So in order to kind of help with the sizing of everything, let's make some dots and play with the size. So this is about, I would say 2 fingers wide. So I'm going to take my 2 fingers and give a good space between that and just draw a line straight up that's about 2 fingers wide. So we have our straight line coming straight from the top of the shell. There's a slight gap between the head. And now we're going to measure. This is about a little bit more than 4 fingers. So we'll say about 5 fingers width of space that we have this kind of curved fin. So I'm going to draw a line when it's about 5 fingers, and there's going to be a dot there that tells me, okay, I don't want to go past this dot. I want to create a curve that kind of comes here and stops. I don't want it bigger than that. So I'm just going to take this line down and curve it like so. And bring that curve back onto the shell now. So we've come down and we have our fin. And we can always check our reference picture. So that's the fin we have. We came down about 5 fingers wide, and it's a soft curved line. And then we come back with a slight curve back into the shell, just like so. Okay, so then we'll repeat fin on this side. So this one is about two inches of width also. So we have about 2 inches down. I'm going to create a dot from the bottom of the head, and we're going to have the next fin kind of pull straight out from there. So we're going to create a straight line about 2 finger lengths as well. And this fin kind of ends somewhere around here. So I'm going to place a dot and gauge in this area, this kind of space here. I'm going to give a dot, give it an endpoint of where this fin is going to now curve down to. And so we're going to sketch softly a nice little curve that's not going to go past this dot here. Just like that. And then we'll come back with a curve, and almost like the shape of a letter J. Just like so. And connect it. And then we'll move down to this part of the shell here, where we're going to draw a straight little line about 1 finger's length width. And then we'll have that little line come out and across and curve in. So it's almost like a triangle. And repeat over here, come down at an angle and curve just like so. And then let's go ahead with the details of the shell. So we're just going to do one big line down the back of the shell. And this line is going to have a slight curve. So if you look at our original picture, it's not a straight line across. If you look at my pencil that's straight, there's a little curve to it. So it kind of goes off to the right. So we're going to start at the base of the neck of the head. So base of the neck. And we're going to start sketching a line halfway across the shell. We're going to start and just bring one big long curved line across the whole of the shell. So starting at the base here, across the whole of the shell. And you want to leave a bit of a gap. So this is about 1/4 of an inch. And we're going to draw a parallel line to that. So the line should have a bit of a gap. But it should be a little curved and parallel. And it should cut the shell in half. And we're just sketching lightly. So if we need to make any changes, adjustments, we can. So that looks good to me. And inside, I'm going to create an oval long dot towards the top. So inside that line, you create an oval long dot. And towards the bottom, we do the same thing. So like an oval long shape at the bottom, just like so. And then we fill in with circles that decrease in size. So a little bit smaller as I go, a little bit smaller, until finally you have little dots. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7, but really you can do as many dots as your heart's desire. Again, a large dot. And as it gets close to the center, just progressively get smaller until they're little dots. So now we're going to cut this shell halfway 2 more times with 2 curved lines, and cut the shell halfway in a curve 2 more times. And that will represent this line and this line. So let's get started doing that. Again, we're just going to make it parallel to the shell shape. So we're going to just do our best almost to make a rainbow here. Sketch around once and sketch around one more time. Trying your best to leave an even space between the two. And then we'll bring the line across the way and do the same thing. 1, 2, just like so. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 areas to decorate. Just like that. Now inside, we're going to continue with some pattern. So this whole outside has a tribal pattern, and it starts off with a diamond shape that goes into itself. So let me show you what that means. The pattern starts with the diamond shape, and then we extend from the sides and connect to a point. Extend from the sides and connect to the point. So as we get to this shape here, I'm creating a diamond. So that's just 4 straight lines, just like so. I'm going to edit this here. So you want a space between these about the same. So I'm going to use a dot to kind of guesstimate how far this space is. So I'm going to continue and say it's about that far, putting a dot along the center here, all the way through about the same space. I would say 1 finger length, and it's at the center of these 2 lines. And then I'm going to do a diamond shape here as well and gauge the space and say, okay, there's a dot here. I'm going to place a dot at the center. About the same space in between these 2 lines. You have this dot going all the way around. And so now we will take a line and touch the side of the first diamond and go to the edge like so, and then connect to the dot. And then starting from the edge to the wall, and then connect to the dot. And then go from the edge to the wall, and then connect to the dot, the edge to the wall, and connect the dot. And don't worry if it's not perfect. You can edit and adjust the angles as you go using your eraser. That's why pencils have an eraser. And just work on creating that pattern where the edge goes to the wall and connects to the dot. Edge goes to the wall and connects to the dot, and it should leave that kind of pointed angle, a diamond that has its tail tucked behind the previous one. And we just keep going around and starting from the edge, going to the point, and starting from the edge and going to the point. And if you don't think you can complete the pattern, that's okay. You can do any repeating shape, any triangle would suffice. It's your picture. You can do anything creative. So we'll continue coming off the side and going to the edge, starting at the sides and heading to a point, side to the wall and heading to the point, starting at the side, heading to the wall. So you see, you just continue with some straight lines, edge, edge to the point, edge, edge to the point, filling in as we go, just like so. And again, if you can't get this certain diamond pattern, that is totally fine. Try your hand at doing any geometric shape in the inside. Just like that, we're finishing up. And there you are. Simple enough. Then the next shape we have are just these 2 V's at the top and bottom. So we have 1 V here and a parallel V here. And then over at the bottom, 2 V's here. Just like so. Now we create a gap and do 2 more V's. And create a gap and do 2 more V's. And we repeat it for the other side. This time the V is facing inward. So we'll do 2 V's and another V. And on this side, this shape goes opposite as well. So 1 V there 2 leaves there. And now lastly, we have all of these swirls to sketch in. Now, if you're not good at the swirls, just think of it as a circle that doesn't finish. So I'm going to start looking at my reference picture. Right now I have a circle here. So starting with the arm right there, I'm just picking a spot where I want my circle to be. And I swirl it and then finish it off on the top edge. And then I come back in and trace it. This one's not necessarily a swirl, more of a wave. So that one comes in and just does one little curve around. And have it come in as well, like that. So we have a circle with that and trying to create a circle there. Then on this side, we have, we look at our reference picture. We start here and create a wider kind of loop. So start here and create a wider hoop and then just double it up like so. And then we just have like a little curve on this part. And honestly, you can put these swirls anywhere. This is just the design that our picture has. So I'm just going to come in and edit. So I remove the line from here. I'm removing the line from the end here. I'm removing the line where the end comes here. And the cross line here. So those are kind of like empty little spaces. So just to give you a close-up look, just doing a little editing. That's why it's so important when you're sketching to just do it lightly. And again, we have this little rounded part here. So I'm going to try to emulate the same thing. And we're going to have this part kind of curve into a circle. And we can edit that edge and kind of retrace there. And then you have another curve here, a curve there, and a curve in here. Really, it's up to you where you'd like to put the curve. Anywhere you decide, you just erase the finishing line. So we have this little curve in here. So I erased any of the lines, just like so. Erase the line over here. Erase the line, kind of opening it this up here. And then we have those fins. And then we have these swirls up here. Again, you can just do any kind of shape. I'm going to start off drawing almost a circle and then just coming down and then just retracing my step. And then a little swirl going the opposite way. So we did that one swirl. So now we're going to have a little bit of a circle the opposite way. And then creating a parallel line there. And one coming from the top. And don't worry if it doesn't look exactly like the sketch. This is just great practice, good inspiration. You can add as many of these tribal-like waves and swirls as you'd like. We have one off in the corner there. And then, of course, once we put ink on here as well, you can make any edits or adjustments. And we have our last little fin with some swirls, and then we'll get started filling in with some marker. So I think this is the most sketch intensive picture that I've had with you guys. So thank you for bearing with me, because I know these swirls aren't easy for everyone. And just coming around and having the end off the edge here. And a little something there. So as you can see, we're just editing as we go. And then of course, after we do our ink on here, we can clean it up even more so with an eraser. So last but not least, we have this part. Now it's just to add these kind of 3 big swirls down the shell. So I'm going to start with the bottom ones first, these 2 bottom ones, and going to create the circle and then kind of create the attachment. So start with the swirl and then create the attachment. Start with the swirl and then create the attachment. And we're going to move our way to about halfway. There's a circle. And so I'm going to wrap that around and then have a twin line following it. And then in here, I'm going to make sure it goes the opposite way. So if this swirl went this way, this swirl is going to go the opposite way. And if things aren't looking the way that you think they should, feel free to get better acquainted with your eraser and fill those in. And then last but not least, we have the swirl kind of piggybacking out here. And now the opposite way. Just like so. And again, you can edit. So that is our sketch. This is our reference picture. And we're going to get started coloring it in. So the hard part is over. Congratulations, you made it through. This is the sketch. So we have several swirls. We have that chain diamond pattern. And now let's get some marker on here. So I'm going to start. They have a broad and a fine tip for these markers. I'm going to start with the top of the page and then work my way towards the bottom. So I'm going to use this fine tip to kind of re-outline my final sketch lines. Now is a good time to allow the pencil to tell you where to go. And now you can make your edits as well. So we have that there. And then I'm just going to kind of retrace the drawing line. As best I can. And leaving a gap for the white to come through. So that's the really important part, that when you are sketching, you're filling in line by line with the marker, but you're also leaving space for that white to come through. So starting with the edge and then slowly start filling in. And making sure you have your white peeking through. And then when you're filling in a bigger space, try and put a line next to each other. Sometimes when working with markers, if you color over the same area too many times, the paper, depending on the type of paper you have, starts to rip. Also, if you're using Sharpie or if you're using permanent marker, it's always good to layer something underneath because whatever you're working on, whatever surface, the marker might bleed through. So just be mindful when creating about the materials and how they work. So I'm just coming in and retracing the drawn lines and leaving the space for the white. And just curving and making sure I'm leaving enough room. And I'm using my drawing line as a guideline. And tracing the step and fixing it and making it more perfect as I go. And so when I fill in a large section, again, I'm not coloring over the same area more than one time. I'm literally just moving the color line by line next to each other. Just like that. And just like that. Going to fill in this little eye area. Leaving a decent gap of white. And leaving a decent gap of white. And again, I'm not coloring. I'm going to use my broad tip. I'm not coloring back and forth over the same area. I'm just trying to go in line order. So once I make a line, I take my color and place it right next to it. I don't do too much repeating right on top. And just filling in all the areas. So just so you remember, anything that's inside that swirl tries to stay white. And that's just the sample so far of the colored area, just to give you a good look. Again, this is our reference picture. And I'm going to start with this tracing of the outline. So as you can see, I'm using my drawn line. That's the drawn line. I'm not tracing it exactly. I'm using it as a guideline to kind of determine how straight to make the line. Just like so. And then I'm making sure I'm leaving gaps where the swirls kind of exit the fin. So as I go in to fill the swirl, I'm doing my best to leave a white gap in between. And again, doing my best. To leave a gap in between. And Surround the line to leave the gap in between, and then fill in the color. So again, when you're filling in, you're just going right next to the previous line and not coloring over too much. And just filling that section in as best you can. And again, this is the reference picture. This is what we have today. And that's all these pictures are when we're creating. Reference pictures, inspiration pictures. Nothing is set in stone. It's your creation. It's your design. Do what you think looks good. And that's how you can develop your style. Don't feel bad if it doesn't look exactly the way that you see it. Everyone is at a different skill level. And of course, the best way to attempt to do these type of patterns and sketches is to practice. The more that you sketch, the easier these pictures become to do. And just filling in. And trying your best to leave the white so that you see the swirl. And coming around. And just retracing your steps here. And filling in with the black. And you just continue. You continue the detail work, curling and curving, creating that negative space with a nice curve and a big bright white swirl. Just retracing here. And at the tail here, there's a little triangle tail. So we can sketch that in, but it's an easy little draw. So a little triangle fills that guy in. And then we'll start with these long oval shapes. And the other long oval shape. And when it comes to these finer dots, I have smaller pens and markers that can get those fine details better. So we'll use this liner. And then I have this gel pen that can get the job done. Very fine for the detail. Perfect. Okay, so back to our inspiration here. We're just going to outline this diamond. So if you feel like you didn't do a great start of the pattern with the pencil, you can kind of correct it now with the marker. And try to keep the lines as straight as you can. You just continue the work of the tracer. So wherever you see those diamond lines, there you are, creating just a little close up just to see where we're at and where we're headed. We're just retracing those little sketch lines. So again, fairly fine tipped marker, and we're just going in there, getting it in those straight lines, retracing our steps. And the best part about it all is don't worry that any of these pencil lines might be showing through. Once this little sketch is over, we'll have the opportunity to take an eraser and clean up any leftover line work. Just like so. And then I'm just going to retrace on the outside of these little dots down the center. And do a little retrace down the center. And really, you can go in any order of filling in. I'm just going in an order that's kind of comfortable for me. And you don't want to kind of wipe your hand directly over a spot you just colored, just in case the marker still is a little wet. So you do have to be a little mindful of that. But otherwise, it's your process. It's your line work. Do whatever's going to release that dopamine. Go to whatever section you'd like and start retracing. Because the good part about sketching is that it's very relaxing. The only thing you have to worry about is completing the line, erasing the line, drawing the line. Makes for relaxing work. Now you just have to give yourself some grace if you're new at it. And you just might find that you're sketching all the time because it's fun and relaxing. So now we're going to create that outline here that touches the corner of the circle. And a repeat. And I'm going to turn my page so it's easy for me to get that curve in. Like so. And get the curve here. And then just making sure those white gaps stay white. A retrace there and there for these inverted B's. Just like so. Making almost a chevron-like pattern. And again, on the other side, making sure that that white stays white. And filling in like so. And we're getting there. So we have this section here that's going to be black. Again, this is our reference photo. We're coloring in And then we have this chevron pattern here. And we'll color in between that black. And then now's the time for a broad tip marker to fill in that wide, well, let's fill in this other side. Fill in that wide line. So we have these filled in. So now let's let this broad tip do some work. So the bigger section, broad tip helps out. No, the quality on this one's not the best. Let's try our other Sharpie. That'll do. And again, line by line, filling in so that we're not coloring over the same section too many times. Just like so. And then we'll come in over here and start filling those in. Making quick work of the fill in here. And then we'll go ahead and create another line in between just to leave it a gap. So if you look at our reference picture, there's a gap between the swirls inside, and then we're done. So once we fill this part in, our picture will be complete. So we'll just come in here and make sure our swirls are on point. And we'll fill in the other outside space in black. And then of course, once you're done with your sketch, you know what you have to do to make it officially a work of art. As with all the pictures, please make sure to sign your masterpiece. And here we are around the way. Around and filling in.
Erica, he said it reminds them of a Zentangle.
It is. It's very much the patterns. It's a good way to relax. It slows your breathing. And we're very much almost at the end, guys. Thank you again so much for doing this with me today. I hope that it changed your idea about doing something tribal and of a different heritage. Because sometimes you look at a sketch and you're like, oh, I could never do that. But when you just break things down into shapes and patterns and curved lines, you realize, hey, if I put it all together, it's actually pretty easy and pretty doable. So I hope that you're encouraged to continue sketching and trying something new, maybe something different from your own background. And of course, the more that you try and apply what you learn, the better you get at it. So the last step, once this black area is completely filled, is doing some strategic cleanup. So you're going to grab your handy dandy eraser and those little areas that are looking a little busy and not as bright white. Till next
Thank
time, thank you guys.
you. Take care.